What is poppin', people? Welcome back to another one of my late reviews. Today we're going to be taking a look at the iPhone 6s, and I'm going to be helping you determine whether it's worth it or not in 2019. So without further ado, let's begin. Alright, so first up with design, it's nothing really that special. We've seen it for the past 4 years, and although it is kind of dated and has thick bezels, it's still very nice to look at and hold in the hand. It's crafted out of 7000 series aluminum, which will not allow it to bend as easily as the iPhone 6 did, so that's kind of good if you're kind of deciding between those two phones. This phone features a headphone jack. It's the last one to feature a headphone jack, so if you're into wired headphones, keep that in mind too, although it does lack stereo speakers, which have been present in every iPhone after, so if that's important to you, I might skip out on this phone. So to sum it up, it's nothing too exciting, but it's nothing too lackluster either, and features a high quality build all these years later. Display is a similar story. It features a 4.7 inch size and a 720p resolution, and yeah, we've seen this display with the 4 previous iPhones, iPhone 6 through 8, and even with that said, it's still a pretty decent display. Yeah, it may lack the sharpness and the OLED quality of the newer displays, but it still produces bright and vibrant colors. And yeah, the IPS display within this phone is still great for media consumption, whether you're scrolling through social media or watching YouTube videos, and it's big enough to make the UI still usable. I mean, if you're like using or coming from a 5S, you know that it's really hard to type and kind of interact with the user interface. The 4.7 inch form factor is still great when you're typing and doing things that, need a little more finger room. I also don't want to forget to mention that this phone was the first to support 3D touch, so it has that pressure sensitive layer in the display. I love the feature, I use it all the time, and yeah, if you're coming from an older phone, it's definitely a little step up. So yeah, just like the design, the display is nothing extraordinary, but it still does the job very well in 2019. Moving on to battery, I wish I could give you a definitive, yes, this is a good battery, or no, it's not, because with used devices, it really does vary. I've had friends with the 6S, and pretty much they've all said that after a few years of using it, the battery has degraded a little bit. So if you're wanting to buy this phone used, I definitely recommend, getting battery bangs, maybe a battery case, or getting the battery replaced completely, whether you do it yourself, which is probably less likely, or get it done at the Apple Store or some third party. It doesn't cost too much, around maybe $40 to $50, I would think. But the most I could tell you is that I estimate that this phone can get around 2 to 4 hours of screen on time, depending on how bad the battery degradation is. And if you're just used to that already, it's not going to be the biggest deal. I certainly could live with it because I'm always plugging in my phone or laying my phone on my wireless charger anyway when I'm not using it. And the good thing is that it charges in about an hour to an hour and a half from 0 to just about full. So yeah, with typical to heavy usage with the iPhone 6s, the battery life isn't exactly great, but it's nothing abominable and is something you can definitely live with and is typical of phones of this age. Moving on to camera quality, I'm just going to say, this is just my opinion, I think that the iPhone 6s features a better camera setup than some of your Android mid-range, maybe lower-end devices, which is kind of price matched to this device used. And I say that because Apple is a multi-billion-dollar company that has invested millions into camera quality and image processing. And yeah, it really shines through because even today you can capture really crispy images and videos, especially in good lighting. This phone brought the first 12 megapixel sensor to iPhone and introduced 4K 30 recording as well as slow motion in 1080p at 120 FPS. With the 6S, you do not get optical image stabilization. You get that with the iPhone 6s Plus and the iPhone 7 and up. So if that's really important to you, then buy another phone or get a newer iPhone. And yeah, if you compare, the iPhone 6s's image quality to that of newer phones, newer flagships, of course you're going to see a difference in dynamic range and sharpness and in low light performance. But despite its age, this phone can take, once again, really crispy and awesome looking images and videos, especially in decent lighting conditions. As for the front camera, it's pretty decent. It's better than its predecessors who had VGA quality, like 1.2 megapixel front cameras. This phone features a 5 megapixel front camera with front flash or front display flash. So if you are looking to up your selfie game, you should definitely get this over an older device. Yeah, overall, camera quality with this device isn't obviously the best you can find on the market right now, but it's definitely more than adequate. And I'll say it again, you can get really decent images and videos still with this phone. And lastly, let's talk performance, my favorite aspect of this phone because it really is its best. The combination of the Apple A9 and 2 gigs of RAM have been really resilient, and they run iOS 12 like a dream, really. I was really blown away when I was using iOS 12 on my multiple friends' iPhone 6s's, and it's an even better experience that I remember with my iPhone 6s Plus that I reviewed a year ago running iOS 11. And because iOS 12 is so well optimized, apps open fairly quickly. You can multitask, and RAM management is still more than adequate as well. And animations on the whole are pretty buttery once again, despite this phone's age. This phone can most definitely run light games and probably some mid-range in terms of intensity games, but I wouldn't expect to run anything too intensive and too new because obviously they're designed to be ran by the newer processors like the A11 and A12, which are really monsters in their own right. But overall, the UI experience with this phone has been great, especially I think because of the A9 and the insane iOS optimization. I think this is a really good indication that iPhone 6s will deal with future software updates, iOS 13 and possibly iOS 14 like a champ. So other than the iPhone 6s's battery life, which is kind of iffy, everything else about the phone is great, and if you can deal with that, having to plug in to charge a little more often or possibly even replacing the battery, this is still a great budget device, and in ways I think you can't really do better with your mid-range to kind of lower end phones around that $130 to $160 price tag. I like this phone. I would use it as a spare, and that's coming from someone who uses the iPhone XS Max on the daily. It really is a great performer still in 2019, and I couldn't recommend it to you enough. And yeah, that about wraps things up. I hope this video helped you out, and I would really appreciate it if you leave a like in this video, comment if you have any questions or suggestions, and subscribe for more content like this. And speaking of suggestions, could you tell me what color should I paint this back wall? Because I am not a fan of this yellow back here. I don't think it looks that great, but I love this setup and I want to keep filming here. Leave me a comment as to which color you think I should paint this back wall, whether it be blue or gray, something more colorful or neutral, I don't know. Let me know. And yeah, as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.